Donald Trump's press secretary just announced that tomorrow Donald Trump will impose sweeping tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, and the stock market is not handling it well, which means that we might be at the start of a Trump triggered stock market crash, followed by a Trump triggered trade war with our three biggest trading partners, all of whom have publicly vowed to retaliate. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I've got several clips to show you in this video, but we're going to start with the announcement from Karoline Leavitt, Trump's press secretary, made just a few minutes ago, where she announced that, no, it's not an idle threat. Tomorrow morning, Donald Trump will impose these tariffs.
Hey, friends at Reuters are reporting that the president has made a decision on the Canada and Mexico tariffs, but that they won't actually be implemented until March 1st. I was wondering if you could confirm that and talk through some of the president's thinking there.
I saw that report and it is false. I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
So there you have it. 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. And Trump previously announced that these would be sweeping, universal blanket tariffs. Of course, he's a pathological liar, so they may be more targeted. But she is quoting the figure 25 and 25 on our two biggest trade partners, and then a 10% tariff on our third biggest trade partner, China. Now, the markets, right after that announcement, right after that announcement, did not like it. And this is the reaction from Fox News reporting on it.
Said promises made, promises kept. That will be happening. 25% for Mexico, 25% for Canada, 10% tariffs on China. There was a bit of a market reaction. You can see the Dow off more than 200 points. If you pop up the big board, John, you'll see right about the time she confirmed that these will begin tomorrow, shortly after the 1 o'clock Eastern time hour. That's when you saw the Dow sell off. Not a huge sell off, but there was certainly a reaction to that.
Well, they have still got 10 hours to try to avoid tariffs before they snap into place at 12:01 a.m. So I wouldn't be surprised if the president hears from Canada and hears from Mexico and maybe even gets a call from his friend Xi Jinping. Don't know.
So funny watching them try to downplay the significance of it, but you guys threw up the big board so we can see the stark. Look at that plummeting red line, just merely from the announcement, the immediate aftermath of the announcement. Now, I won't be here this weekend. I'll be out of town, so it's entirely possible this is over in an hour or a day or a week or 10 months. I have no way of knowing this, but right now it sure as hell doesn't look good. And watching these Fox hosts in real time try to cover Trump's ass and also nervously react. Well, maybe he'll get a phone call. Please, for the love of God, watching it in real time. So funny. Barron's talking about the stock market news. Dow falls after White House tariff comments. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ were higher Friday as PCE inflation data was in line with expectations, but the Dow is down right after Donald Trump, press secretary, said what she said. Again, this is the immediate aftermath. There's no telling what will follow. Karoline Leavitt received other questions about the tariffs, okay? And some of them were pretty tone-deaf responses, so we're going to play a couple of these clips.
Yes. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. Can you guarantee that those tariffs won't increase prices for Americans, including at the gas pump and the grocery store?
I think Americans who are concerned about increased prices should look at what President Trump did in his first term. He effectively implemented tariffs, and the average inflation rate during the first Trump administration was 1.9%. In fact, when President Trump left office, it was 1.4%. So President Trump is going to do everything he possibly can to cut the inflation crisis that the previous administration imposed on the American people, and he will continue to effectively utilize tariffs.
If those tariffs do increase prices for Americans, will the administration reverse them?
That's a hypothetical question, and the president is intent on ensuring that he effectively implements tariffs while cutting inflation and costs for the American people. And, the media has this way of just looking at everything in a microscope rather than looking at the whole of government economic approach that this president is taking. He will
Yeah, media, how dare you ask relevant questions? Trump himself has repeatedly said that the reason that he was elected president was because of groceries. It's a beautiful word. No one ever uses the word groceries. I say groceries. And if you're threatened universal tariffs of 25% on our two biggest trading partners and then 10% universal tariffs on our third biggest trading partner, that will absolutely increase the cost of grocery prices, which you promised to cut. You promised to cut grocery prices in day one. You lied, you failed, you walked it back. A major Trump administration failure for which he should be held politically accountable. But now your actions threaten to precipitously increase the cost of groceries. And this idea, well, look at what he did in his first term. Well, in his first term, he inherited a really good economy from President Obama, just like he did with this one. And his trade war with China was not a universal trade war for 25%, but even the trade war he initiated with China cost American farmers billions of dollars. I mean, we did not benefit from financially from the trade war that Trump triggered with China. As a matter of fact, tax analyses have been done. It was like it was effectively one of the biggest tax increases in American history, all because Trump doesn't understand how tariffs work. She was asked another question, though, because, again, all three of these countries have publicly threatened to retaliate in one form or another. Canada has been particularly bullish. And so Carolyn Leavitt was confronted with remarks made by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This is how she responded.
Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, said today that if the U.S. imposes tariffs, he will respond and he will not relent until the tariffs are removed. Are we seeing the start of a trade war with Canada?
I don't think so. I think the president is going to implement those tariffs tomorrow, and he will respond to Mr. Trudeau's comments in due time, I am sure.
What type of things have to happen? What does the administration need to see in order to avoid those tariffs?
Well, the tariffs are incoming tomorrow on Canada. And the reason for that is because both Canada and Mexico have allowed an unprecedented invasion of illegal fentanyl that is killing American citizens and also illegal immigrants into our country. In fact, I have more language for you right here. Canada, Mexico, and China, which, as I mentioned, President Trump will implement a 10% tariff on China, have all enabled illegal drugs to pour into America. The amount of fentanyl that has been seized at the southern border in the last 2 years alone has the potential to kill tens of millions of Americans. And so the president is...
Right. So listen, there is a fentanyl crisis here in the United States. As a matter of fact, I'll point out that elected Republicans blocked the funding of state-of-the-art fentanyl detectors during the Biden administration as to avoid giving President Biden a political victory, because they'd rather see more Americans die than help Democrats. Again, they hate Democrats more than they love their own constituents. There's just no question about that. But again, the idea is that these countries have significant leverage as well. And a trade war will hurt everybody: Canada, Mexico, China, and the United States. So it's not like they're going to emerge unscathed either, but they have threatened to retaliate publicly and privately. And again, Trudeau has been perhaps the most outspoken. And listen, I won't be here tomorrow. Is it possible? Is it possible that they back down? That Trudeau and Sheinbaum, the Mexican president, and Xi Jinping, the president of China, the premier of China, calls Donald Trump and says, you know what, hell, we relent, we wave the white flag? Sure, that is possible. It's possible that Trump could get his way here. But this is a hell of a risk, and the stock markets are already freaking out about it. And again, we've been through this. A trade war is just objectively bad for all countries involved, all countries. It raises costs for the American consumer, and especially when your tariffs are not targeted. Your tariffs are universal, which is what Trump has threatened. And again, he has repeatedly threatened, if I impose a tariff on China, Mexico, and Canada, it's going to be universal, blanket, on every imported good. Now, again, he's a liar, and MAGA lies. It's entirely possible. Oh, we never meant that. Oh, we never said that. They said that. It's possible that these tariffs will be targeted, right? But that would be a walkback. That would be a concession. That would be Trump modifying his strategy. But wherever those 25, 10% tariffs are directed, we will see an increase for the consumer, because the companies that have to pay the duties to get these imported goods are not going to take it on the chin. There's no way in hell that they're going to be like, yeah, we'll just eat the cost. We'll shrink our profit margins and continue to do the American worker a solid. There's no way. They're going to just add the cost of those duties onto the original price, and so the end consumer will ultimately pay more. That is historically, invariably, how trade wars have gone. But the last thing I want to play is a clip from this press secretary for this press briefing about Colombia. Because you remember, we had a brief trade war with Colombia. It was over in just like 10 hours, where both Donald Trump and President Gustavo Petro of Colombia threatened to impose tariffs on one another. And then they walked it back. And Trump, of course, and MAGA took a victory lap. Hell yeah, man. That's Trump. He's just flexing on him. And they backed down. Except it turns out, and we discussed this in a different video, that actually Trump's administration quietly made basically all the major concessions that Petro demanded, which is treat them humanely, don't handcuff them, and don't photograph them like they're like animals. And we'll take them back. It's fine. That's what we did under the Biden administration. So based on the reporting, Petro got more of what he wanted than Trump. But then this was pointed out.
Sure.
A question on Colombia. We just interviewed Colombian President Gustavo Petro, and he insisted that he's not going to take any Colombian deportee from the U.S. if they arrive in South America handcuffed. How this administration responds to that?
When did the Colombian president make those remarks?
Today, during an interview with us at Univision.
Well, I will share those with the president of the United States, and I will get back to you on his response.
Now, that, I don't know how smart of a decision that was by Petro, because that just might resume tensions, and you can see that Carolyn Levitt's kind of low-key pissed, because remember, she and Trump are cut from the same cloth. Don't you dare backtalk Donald Trump under any circumstances. Don't you dare assert yourself. So it's possible that what Petro said, again, based on reporting, that was in line with what the reporting was, that U.S. officials said that they would not handcuff Colombian immigrants being deported back to Colombia. That was one of the terms. Like, okay, we won't do that. Okay, we'll send them back to you uncuffed, and we won't photograph them. We'll treat them with dignity. But Petro saying this might piss Trump off because, of course, Trump and Carolyn Levitt and the MAGA upper echelon are all fragile, right? And so they might take this as a challenge, which means the reason I'm bringing this up is we might be back in a trade war with Colombia as well. So it's possible that by tomorrow we'll be in a trade war with Canada, Mexico, China, our three biggest trading partners, and Colombia. And again, the stock market is already not liking this. So I won't be here. I'll be watching it from Twitter. I won't be able to record, but fingers crossed that we avoid a punitive trade war with three of our three biggest trading partners and Colombia, which will ultimately, all of it, hurt the United States. Fingers crossed. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.